Good afternoon, everyone. This is Bob Pompiani, and welcome to the Mike Tomlin press conference presented by PNC Bank here on Pittsburgh CW and around the world on all the Steeler digital and social media platforms. Well, it was a big win last night, 26-16. The Steelers took care of the Giants. Slow start, got the rust off, and then they were really in rhythm, especially in the red zone. Ben Roethlisberger with a 117 passer rating. Benny Snell off the bench with 113 yards rushing and a defense that was so good that Roethlisberger ended up with more rushing yards than Saquon Barkley. That's pretty much all you need to know about that game, as the Steelers had a good effort and won by 10, and now they get set for their home opener coming up on Sunday at 1 p.m. against the Denver Broncos, who were losers last night at home, 16-14 against Tennessee. So there's a lot to go over. There were injuries last night to three guys on the Steelers. Mike Tomlin will certainly have updates on that. Let's take you over right now to the South Side. Mike Tomlin is ready to roll with his press conference right here on CW.
Good afternoon. I'll start first with a quick review of last night. First, from an injury standpoint, I don't have a lot of new information. But I think it's safe to characterize Zach Banner as out for this week. They're still in the process of getting scans on Wiz and James Conner, but I think their forecast is a more favorable one, so we'll leave the light on for those two. So we'll make some necessary adjustments and close ranks and on a short week and see where that leads us in terms of division of labor. But we acknowledge that injuries are a part of the game, and although they are unfortunate for those men, it could mean opportunity for other deserving and capable men, just like it was on Monday night for Benny Snell, and he put that on display. In regards to the game, it was great to win. It's great to get the season started in that way. Obviously, we got a few things to work on. It was far from perfect from an execution standpoint and from a planning standpoint. We've all have room for improvement, and I'm excited about doing that with the win. A couple things to highlight. I thought, our start lacked fluidity on offense, and for several reasons. They did some things schematically, like we talked about last week, some unforeseen things because there wasn't a lot of video evidence of their playing personality. So some things caught us a little flat-footed early on schematically, but also just in terms of finding our rhythm and cohesion. Once we got that going, I thought we moved the ball more fluidly as a collective offense, and that was revealed as the game wore on. Defensively, we gave up a big play for a touchdown. We gave up a penalty on a possession down right prior to that. We had an opportunity to get off. It was 3rd and long. I thought our third down defense could have been better. I think they were 8 of 15 on third downs, and that's not winning football for us, although the things that we did on first and second down largely was really impressive, particularly as it pertained to stopping the run. And that was talked about quite a bit last night. And obviously we got some work to do in terms of some of our special teams execution. We fumbled or muffed a punt there early on that put them on a short field. Thankfully, we were able to hold our ground and make them settle for 3. And then also we had a kickoff out of bounds there in the second half of the game that allowed them to start on the 40-yard line. So we got a myriad of things to clean up, things that make you easy to beat. But like I said, it's good to work on those things with the win. We had a lot of anxiety going into the game, like a lot of people, first time in the stadium and not knowing what you were going to get, not only from individuals, but us as a collective in terms of how we communicate, how we distribute the labor, logistically, how we function. I think we about getting back out on the field this week and working to improve those areas. We need to do so quickly. We're going to play a Denver Bronco team that's really talented, that's coming off a tough game last night. I'll start talking about those guys. First, just on the defensive side of the ball, obviously they're without Von Miller, who is, one of the premier players in this game and of his generation, and that's a significant loss. But that happens some in this game, and I'm sure that they are ready to close ranks and individual players are ready to step up. Bradley Chubb is a quality outside linebacker that plays opposite of Vaughn, who missed some time last year himself due to injury. Is a really talented guy, is a really tough guy to deal with. really big and really athletic for the position. Has some measurables that we compared very similarly to Bud Dupree when Bud came out, and he shows a similar skill set in terms of his ability to play the run and rush the passer. And just talking and speaking about the loss of Von Miller, I'd be also remiss if I didn't mention the quality, experienced coaches that they have on that side of the ball. Coach Fangio and Ed Donatel, man, they've been in this game a long time, particularly at this level. They're very credible guys. They're very reputable guys, and I'm sure that they're going to do what it is they need to do for the collection of players that they have there to bring the best out in them. Familiarizing ourselves with this safety tandem, really impressive. Both guys are capable of playing in the post. Both guys are capable of spinning down into the box and making plays for their defense. They're very multiple. They're capable of giving you 3-man rush, 4-man rush, or 5 or more. They have a myriad of zone and man principles on the back end that make it difficult for quarterbacks to operate. And so we got to be sharp there. On the offensive side of the ball, just been really working hard to familiarize ourselves with Drew Lock and his skill set. His mobility is impressive. His accuracy is impressive. His arm strength is impressive. And I think those traits allow them and him to attack the field just about at every spot. They do a really good job of changing the launch point. They do a really good job of stretching you and challenging you vertically down the field. He has a bunch of quality weapons, many of which we know about, guys like Fant and Sutton in the running back tandem, but he's got some new guys that are new to professional football that have a really impressive skill set as well. Judy's tape from last night was really impressive. His stop and go abilities, his route running abilities, his ability to get to speed quickly. I also have a great deal of respect for Hamler, who was not suited last night, but is out of Penn State, and we're very familiar with him regionally. He's a dangerous guy and a guy that's capable of taking the top off the coverage. So, we got a lot of things to worry about. I didn't mention Melvin Gordon. I did mention him as a running back tandem, but Melvin Gordon is new to them, former LA Charger, top quality back, a guy that toted the mail for him last night, and a guy that we should anticipate being capable of doing that as we step into the stadium this week. We're working on a short week. We don't have a lot of in-stadium game experience. We got to be thoughtful about what we ask our guys to do and who we ask to do what. All the while, we got to collectively grow and get better. We need to assume that those that we're competing against are doing similar things, and so we better have that type of urgency, and our process better be geared toward that. But it's good to learn some of those lessons, like I mentioned, while you win, and it's good to be sitting here after week 1 at 1-0 and having an opportunity to go into Heinz Field and do it this week in the comforts of home. Questions?
Andrew Stocky, go ahead. Okay, next up, Mike Pursuta. Mike, go ahead.
Mike, the schematic issues early on that you referenced, how much of that was attributable to Connor's slow start, and how much of that was cleaned up by the time Snell got in?
A lot of what happened at the early portions of the game could be contributed to that. Like we talked about last week, man, we didn't have any video evidence of their personality on offense, defense, or special teams. We knew the reputation of the individual coaches, but we didn't necessarily have an understanding or a definite understanding of what the collective would look like and how they would utilize the talents of the players that they have. And so some of that stuff was being discovered at the early portions of the game, and so there's consequences for that.
Will Graves, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, last week you said, James is our bell cow. If is Benny capable of fulfilling that role if for some reason James is limited?
I think he displayed that last night.
Brooke Pryor, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, was James's injury, was that something that he came into the game dealing with, or did it happen over the course of the game? And does that give you any more concerns about his long-term durability?
It does not. I lean on the expert advice of the medical staff in terms of availability and things of that nature. He didn't have anything wrong going into the game. It occurred at the early portions of the game.
Tim Benz, go ahead.
Mike, when it comes to your offensive linemen, Dotson and Okorafor, should those two young guys be pressed into service this week? How did they end up camp? And the limited looks you got at Dotson last night in the game, how did he perform?
I think those are two different discussions. We've talked quite a bit about Chooks along with Banner in the battle that they had for right tackle. And like I've said repeatedly, I thought both guys were starter capable, and I still feel that way. So I'm extremely comfortable with Chooks in his ability to play and his overall readiness. Dotson is another story. He's a young guy who hadn't had a lot of work throughout this process because of injury and lack of availability. So there's some angst there. And if he's called upon this week, man, it's going to take a tremendous effort by him and by us. And by us, I mean us putting him in the very best position to perform. And so there's some dual responsibility there.
Jeff Hathorn, go ahead.
Mike, along those lines, what have you seen from Hassenauer during camp? Obviously, one of the guys to be kind of a swing guy.
JC's been in our program. He was on our Peace Squad last year. He's a very capable backup, a guy that we're comfortable with in terms of knowing what to do and having an understanding of his skill set. And he's an interior backup rotational player that's capable of being called upon if need be.
Albie Oxenreiter. Albie, go ahead.
Hi, Mike. How you?
Great.
A lot was made in the offseason about playing in front of empty stadiums. With the excitement of the opener and with the anticipation of Ben's return, was that out of your mind altogether in the moment? Did it feel like you were playing a normal game under normal circumstances?
It felt like a normal game. These are not normal circumstances. And so, I'd be less than honest if I said the empty stadium on Monday Night Football felt normal, but it is normal for us in 2020. There are certain advantages to it. There are certain challenges to it. And I thought last night gave us an opportunity to familiarize ourselves with both components of that discussion, and hopefully we're better as we move forward because of it.
Brian Batko, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, one more question on that point. I mean, was it any harder or easier to communicate sideline to field or vice versa with that pumped-in crowd noise? I know it's supposed to be a consistent level throughout the game, and I guess that'll be the case again Sunday at home.
It is easier to communicate than normal circumstances, but it's also easier for your opponent to hear your communication and for you to hear theirs. And so, that's something that needs to be weighed in an element of the competitive atmosphere that's interesting and new to us.
Rich Walsh, go ahead.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about JuJu from last night. Was that a product of, what he did this offseason, or that he's just healthy now?
That's JuJu. He came in ready to play and he performed well. And but we've seen that from him from him the most of the time that he's been here. And so, I don't know that any of us were surprised by what he delivered last night.
Chris Adamski, go ahead.
Mike, under the circumstances, no preseason, a strange offseason, the conditioning in a first game action, was it above the line for everybody? And did you learn anything about substitution patterns or anything that you might change going forward based off that one game?
I thought conditioning was on display last night. I do think that we got winded there in that one drive that they were able to put together for an extended period of time, and they went down the better part of the field, and we were able to get an interception and get off. I think fatigue became a factor there, but I think that's a natural thing this time of year when you're on the field like that. I thought our coaches did a nice job of rotating players and working to keep people fresh, and I thought the guys did a nice job of showing up ready to go in that regard.
Andrew Stockey, go ahead.
Mike, during the game, your team all wore Antoine Rose's name on the back of their helmets. But during the broadcast, we saw the Al Villanueva had the name of Sergeant Alwyn Cash on his helmet. Did he discuss that with you, and can you share with me the thought process as to why he did it?
Yes, he did discuss that with me, and it's in line with everything that we said about participating in elements of social justice this offseason. As an organization and myself as a head coach of the organization, we're going to support our players in however they choose to participate and express themselves or to not participate or not express themselves, as long as they do so thoughtfully and with class. And so that has been a blanket approach that we've had. And so I think it needs no further explanation in terms of our support for Al Villanueva or anyone else in terms of what they do or doesn't do in regards to social justice, as long as they adhere to the outline that I just outlined for you.
Jim Colony, go ahead.
All right, well, Mike, what is the short and maybe the longer term outlook for DeCastro right now?
I don't know. I'm hopeful that he's able to work tomorrow. We'll see.
Brian Batko, go ahead.
Mike, I think you guys were able to dress maybe one more guy last night when it came down to the inactives. Can you explain, I guess, just why you did give one of those spots back ultimately and the decisions you made on who didn't get a hat?
Yeah, there was some indecision on my part about the rule, and so we didn't get clarity on it until extremely late in the process. And just from an overall preparedness standpoint, we decided to put the helmets on the guys that were prepared to play and had an understanding that they were going to play. So I take responsibility for that miscommunication, and it's a learning process for us. There's a lot of memos coming out of New York these days, so it's tough to keep up with them.
Will Graves, go ahead.
Mike, you mentioned the special teams issues in your opening statement. Given the nature of camp, was that the area that you maybe expected the most rust because it's just so difficult to replicate some of those things in a practice-like environment?
No, I can't tell you that I, anticipated more rust in that area than any other area, because we devoted a lot of time to live football in that area, and we gave that area of play its just due from a team development standpoint. That being said, we still got a lot of meat on the bone, as we do in the other phases as well, and we look forward to getting back out there and getting better at it this week.
Alan Saunders, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask about what you thought of Matt Filer's play at left guard, and without Zach Banner, would he be, I guess, the first option if you had an injury at tackle?
We're making some moves in the offensive line, and so I won't speculate on what our depth or the pecking order will be until we handle that necessary business. But I do like the play of Matt at guard. I do like the play that he had last night, and I know that he is tackle capable. And so that I'm sure that will be an element of the discussion at the appropriate time.
Rich Walsh, go ahead.
Mike, how much do you appreciate Bud Dupree? Not only how he handled the offseason, but what he continues to do on the field. It seemed like he was in on every play just about last night.
Bud is a dangerous guy, but as is TJ. And, man, when you got an outside linebacker tandem like that in the 3-4 defense, you have an opportunity to play great defense. And we're cognizant of the contributions of those two men and appreciative of it. And that's why we're excited about the group that we have.
Jeff Hathorn with the follow-up.
Mike, I know football can be a cold game, but how do you deal with the emotions of someone like Zach Banner that have worked so hard and now could be out for a long period of time?
You said it. It can be a cold game, but it's a lot like life. We're not defined by what happens to us. We're defined by how we respond to it. And so whenever unfortunate events like that occurs, we talk openly about that. It's not that he got injured after all that he's been through and the fight that he's been through to get where he is. It's about what he does moving forward in response to it. And he's a competitor. He's a professional. And I expect him to smile in the face of adversity.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin after his press conference today, presented by PNC Bank. A lot of interesting things to say, including the injury situation. He said he'll, quote, leave the light on for James Conner, who was injured last night with his ankle injury. Benny Snell came in, and boy, did he look good with 113 yards rushing in that game. So nice problem to have if both are healthy, and we'll see as the week goes on whether or not he can participate. Meantime, other injuries, Zach Banner, even though they haven't ruled him out for the season, he's certainly out for this week, and nothing official beyond that. But you have to feel bad for Zach and all the work that he's put in, getting a start over there at right tackle and spending all that time in preseason at training camp getting that done. As far as Stefan Wisniewski, another injury, a pec injury. Again, examinations going on, so at this point, no update on that, but we'll continue to monitor that as we go through the week. But a good win, a defense that dominated the Giants as the game went on. Mike Tomlin wasn't satisfied with the third down situation on defense because the Giants did go 8 for 15 in that regard. However, overall, they got after him and they made life very difficult at times in big situations. And again, the killer play, if you're a Giants fan, was that big long drive that took over 9 minutes, 87 yards, 19 plays, and on the 19th play, it was Bud Dupree who had a sensational game. I thought the best game he's ever played. He could have been gassed, he could have been out, whatever. He came hit his arm. Daniel Jones and threw the ball. It was sort of a lame duck up in the air, and it was Cam Hayward who came up with the interception. All big plays and a big win for the Steelers, 26-16. So next up, it is the Denver Broncos here at Heinz Field. That'll take place on Sunday. Just want to remind you that on Pittsburgh CW, we'll be on the air every night discussing that. Also, our pregame show on Sunday begins at 11:30 a.m. Join us for that. The game follows the NFL Today on CBS at 1 p.m. And then after that, we have the Extra Point, which is brought to you by your neighborhood Ford store. So all that, another big week of Steeler football. They're 1-0 off to a good start, tied with the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to do it for our broadcast here today. Thanks for joining us. And again, you can join us every week, 12 noon, right here on CW and on all the Steelers social media platforms throughout the world. We have a lot of viewers who text us throughout the course of this press conference from all over, and we certainly appreciate that support. That's going to do it for everyone here at Heinz Field. I'm Bob Pompiani. We'll see you again next Tuesday at 12 noon for the Mike Tomlin press conference brought to you by PNC Bank.